So I had the thought to show you how I make a cabbage rose. A cabbage rose, here's a large, they look best small, but there's, I'm hoping it'll focus, a large one. I've been making them all day today. This is, when I first started doing clay again, my first thought was to make a bunch of cabbage roses because I know how to do them and they're easy. So this is one cane I made. And like I said, they look better when you shrink them down. This is one. Can you see that? Then this one's not going to show up that well, I don't think, because of the glitters. It's black and purple. Here. Yeah, maybe. See, that one's been shrunk down a little bit, but you really can't see it with the camera because of the glitter. And the red one again. The red one's really cool because it's black, brown, and red. Anyway, so I'm going to make one and you'll be able to see part of the process. So I've already made my blend. This is my color blend. Can you see that? So I'm going to be working right here, and I need to get the camera to focus right here instead of on me. Okay, my messy spot. So the first thing you do is I have to make a ribbon, and I need to decide how wide I want my ribbon, which is a little less than that. And then I fold. See how I'm folding? And then I fold. Now this is too fat to go through the pasta roller. And I'm going to use the manual pasta roller because it's not noisy. Say thank you. This is going to be wobbly for a second. My ribbon is a little fatter than I wanted it, but that always happens to me. Trying to figure out, is it? I think it's doing that whole adjusting the lighting thing again, which I don't know why it does. Okay, so this has been thinned out, and now it's going to go through the pasta rollers right here. So it's going to go through here, and I crank it into a thin ribbon. Yeah, I got it on the right setting. And then I'm going to crank it into a slightly thinner ribbon. This is all me avoiding talking about anything important, in case you didn't notice. So, yeah, I won't talk politics while doing a beading tutorial. Grr. Your political tip of the day is when something political happens, do not go onto your Facebook and find the one friend of yours that you know knows something about the subject and ask them to explain it. Do your own friggin' research. Anyway, that's my grumble butt today. So, I made a long ribbon. Now, most of the time when you're doing a bullseye cane, you start at the light one and you roll to the dark. But for a cabbage rose, you really want to start at the dark and roll to the white, to the light. So I pinched, and now I'm rolling. You want to try to avoid air bubbles. They're almost impossible to avoid, but you want to try. If you're doing a bullseye cane or a standard cane, really try. If I was doing a bullseye cane or a standard cane, I'd have run this through a couple of more thinnesses and made it a lot thinner, but it gets harder and harder to handle. And for a cabbage rose, you do not have to do that. You can be sloppy with a cabbage rose, which is why I like them. Like I said, when I first started doing clay again, I had the thought to do a bunch of cabbage roses because I know how to do them, and then I decided that that would be cheating and it wasn't a challenge, and I didn't do them. So now I have a plug. And I'm going to take the plug and I'm going to squish it just a little bit. Can you see the hole? We have to fill in that hole among other things. And squish it just a little bit. And now the majority of clay is this. If you have a pattern in here, don't roll it. You will distort the pattern. This is the Sculpting, not the Primo, which means that, let's see, Can you see how far in the thumb dented there? It's just that soft. The inside squishes out faster than the outside, but the outside gets thin. Does that make sense? Anyway, I need 8 inches from this. I'll settle for 6, she said. I didn't do that. Okay, once you get it down to about there, once it's the shape of a roll of quarters, then you can start rolling it, unless you have a really fancy pattern inside. Fancy patterns do not like being rolled. They distort. Trust me, I distort more patterns than you want to know about. The other day I was trying to make a Buddha face. It did not work. I was trying to make a infinity sign. It did not work. I got some really cool canes out of it for other things. But a lot of what I do gets turned into chop canes because that's what you do when you screw up. Okay. So here, the inside is coming out because the inside moves and the outside stays static. Does that make sense? I don't know. Yeah, it's doing that color adjust thing. I gotta get a manual or something that tells me how to do things with this camera. So, once you get 6 to 8 inches rolled out, one of the things you'll see here, and this is me specific, not clay specific, can you see that one side is fatter than the other? Probably. That side is thinner and that side is bigger. It's because this hand is stronger and this hand is weaker from the stroke. So this hand is getting, this clay is getting thinner and this clay is just kind of sitting there. It's kind of funny because the left arm is the arm that's the reattachment, but it's my good arm. That's how the world works, you know? Okay. So I have my ruler, and I'm not quite there yet. I need about another inch. You don't want it to get too small because then it gets awkward to work with. Okay. So I'm going to measure off 2-inch increments, not quite. Not quite. Yes, that works. 2-inch increments. 1, 2, 3. Move the ruler. Set this way. And cut. Have to have a sharp knife. Can you see how this is dragging up here? You see how the clay drug? Anyway, knife's not that sharp. Yeah, here you can see on that one. See how it drug the clay? It's not actually deformed inside, it's just deformed right there. But it makes it impossible to cut anything delicate. If I wanted to be cutting thin slices off, I can't cut thin slices off, I'll deform it. I can't cut beads right now because I'll deform it. The knife needs to get sharpened. So once you have this cut into 4 pieces, then cut in half, okay? That's an air pocket. If I was making a fancy cane, that would be just absolutely bad news. For a cabbage rose, it's okay to have air pockets because we're going to squish them out. Now I'm going to cut this into a quarter. I put the half aside, and now I'm cutting everything else into quarters. And I'm cutting some big and some small, which means I'm not cutting them exactly in half, so that some of these quarters are bigger than other quarters. Can never see where the camera angle is. All the different colors. Okay. I'm feeling really burnt out on Facebook these days. I'm feeling really burnt out on social media. I'm feeling really burnt out on people that I thought were intelligent repeating stupid things without fact checking. I'm burnt out on people saying, yeah, but your source isn't good, my source is, without any regard to what the source is. It gets to a person. Okay, so this is the half, and I'm going to squish. And 90% of polymer clay is squish. Squish, 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 squish. And I'm going to put my ruler here because I'm going to go to 3 inches. So these right now are 2 inches, and when they're done they'll be 3 inches. I'm not deliberately elongating. But what I am doing is taking the edge and pinching. And pinching, and pinching, and pinching, and pinching. Coming over to the other side, and pinching, and pinching, and pinching, and pinching. I want a nice thin edge on both sides. And then the center. And then I want to stretch and manipulate and get it 3 inches long. Okay, good enough. Then I take and I curl this edge. And I curl this edge. And I'm making the very center of the rose. So I'm going to roll this on itself. If you can roll a joint, you can probably do this. I don't smoke pot, so I don't have this skill set. But I was watching somebody else's tutorial a while back, and they made that comment, and I was just like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, so that is the center of my rose. Now I have to come over here and measure again, and now it's slightly more than 3 inches because it squish grows. Now I set that there, I pick up the next one, and I squish. And I spend the next 20-30 minutes squishing each petal, one petal at a time. Squish the center down, squish the edges. Check to make sure it's 3 inches. Pick one side and always start on that side so you have one side is even, because it's going to distort, and there's no reason to have both sides be distorted. Press and roll. And now we have the first petal down. I'm going to use that side as my main side. And now we have the first petal down. Then leave it up so that you know where your petal is. Pick up the next one, squish. I'm not going to hit the pause button and come back. I'm not going to hit the fast forward button when I do stuff. I'm just going to let it go. We're at 13 minutes, so as soon as I finish this petal, I'm going to assume you got the idea and be done for the night. Yeah. Okay, so you have this seam here. Can you see the seam? You can see the seam. You're going to overlap ever so slightly. You're going to come all the way down, make sure it comes all the way down to the bottom, and you're going to seal this side gently, and then you're going to roll it on itself, and you have the second petal. And this side is getting sloppier and sloppier. So that is pretty much how you make a cabbage rose. I just did that. I'm trying to handle the phone without touching the phone, so of course I just like totally slimed the phone. Stay. Why won't that work? There. It's not going to do anything else. I need to wipe my hands. So somebody asked me about these because I made a comment about I use these. And they're like, those are bad for the environment, single use, blah, blah, blah. If you used them as single use, they'd be bad for the environment. Let's see, first of all, these are really wet, which means I can use them probably 10 times because I put it back in the can. It's just being used for polymer. It's not being used to sterilize a surface that a baby's going to eat on. I also throw them in the wash, and they come back out, and I use them for dusting. I also use them for cleaning surfaces. This one's been washed probably 10 times. Okay? I also, when I'm working with the varnish, it's hard, but it has to get wiped off almost every third bead. You have to wipe it. You have to catch the drips. You dip the bead, and then it drips, and you've got to catch the drip off the bottom, or you're going to wind up with a permanent drip on the bottom of your bead, which looks ugly. So you take a knife and you touch the bottom, and then you wipe. And you take a knife and you touch the bottom. So these get harder and harder and harder, and I reuse them continually until there's not a soft spot left on it. And that's me and the life cycle of a single-use product. Mind you, I'm the person who knows how to make beads out of straws. There's no such thing as single-use in my life. You should all know that by now. It's been 16 minutes. I'm tired. I'll talk to you tomorrow.